the fascia is connected head to toe. So anything you do at the top has a ripple effect at the bottom. They say the jaw is much linked to the calf. So if you've got a really tight jaw, you may have a tight calf, or vice versa. You know, people say, I keep getting cramps in my feet or cramps in my calf.
Welcome to The Search for Wellness, a podcast dedicated to discovering the path to a healthier, more fulfilling life. Join us on this heartfelt journey as we share inspiring stories, insightful conversations, and practical tips to nurture your mind, body, and spirit.
Anjali Patel is a UK-trained physiotherapist with over 17 years of experience in the UK and Kenya. Her journey took a profound turn 12 years ago when she discovered the power of fascia, transforming her approach to healing. Specializing in somatic bodywork and the Be Activated framework, she bridges the gap between mind and body, helping clients unlock better movement, breath work, and overall well-being. And she is finally here on The Search for Wellness. So welcome, Anjali.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited we're finally having this conversation. I've been waiting for a long time.
I am so excited that we're finally having this conversation. The universe finally aligned and said, okay, right, it's time.
It's time.
I always believe in that. Like, when the time is right, everything happens.
Absolutely.
There are no coincidences. So let's go straight into it. I think most people know, but I think it's better to also dive into it a little bit more again. What is fascia and why is it crucial for our overall health?
Well, fascia is a fine network of collagen fibers, which form like a web-like structure within the body. And it connects us from head to toe. It's actually the scaffolding of the nervous system, okay? And it connects us all the way down from our toes. You can actually feel the fascia will move in different fascial lines all the way up to our head. And it's everywhere. It's ubiquitous. It's literally everywhere within our body. We have it in all around our muscles, all around our joints, all around bones. And we have what we call a little sock of fascia. And then we have groups of organs together, or groups of muscles, and we form even more socks of fascia that connects the whole system together. Yeah.
And why is it so beneficial and important for our health and well-being?
So fascia is fluid, okay? It's got layers of fluid between it. We have, if you think of lasagna, you know, it's layered. So we have superficial layers of fascia, then we have in between, and we have deep layers. Now, in between these layers of fascia, we have fluid that allows the fascia to glide over each other. And this is what allows us to have freedom of movement. And if we don't have healthy fascia, we'll have restriction or adhesions, and we won't be able to move, or we'll be in pain, and we'll lose that flexibility or fluidity of the body. So we can't move that well.
So it plays a role in pain and stiffness.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if we have very dehydrated fascia, which a lot of us have, we find structures in the body that are tight and that they can't move correctly. So no matter how much you'll say, oh, my hamstring is really tight, my hamstring, I'm stretching it, but it's actually the fascia around the hamstring, that sock, that's restricting that range of motion. So we have to make sure we have very healthy fascia, keep it hydrated as well.
How do you get healthy fascia?
Obviously, first thing, keep yourself hydrated, but doing more mobility work.
Okay.
So moving the body. A lot of us have very sedentary lifestyles, maybe a sedentary job. We come back, sit in a car, have a long drive, come home, sit and watch Netflix. So we're very sedentary. What then happens is the fascia just starts to tighten up. So if you think about a sweater, a knitted sweater, and if you've got a really tight hip, it's going to pull on that, but it's going to have a ripple effect everywhere else. So you'll be like, oh, my shoulder just feels a bit icky. And it's because the fascia there is not moving correctly. It's dehydrated there, but also in the hip. So it's really important for us to do mobility work, move. A lot of us don't move. Movement is medicine.
Exactly.
And that's how we keep our fascia really healthy. Another way is doing, a bit of breath work. That really helps work well with how the fascia moves. And also I teach my clients different fascia sequences that helps them where they're restricted in their range of motion or mobility.
And boy, oh boy, are you strong. Like she might not look it, but you go on her table and then she presses and you literally jump out of your skin.
Yeah, so those are actually fascia adhesions.
Yeah.
Okay, so fascia adhesions are, as I said, the fascia glides over each other, but when it's stuck or dehydrated, has an injury, the fascia clumps up. So if you think about a spider web or candy floss, it's very high and very fibrous, but the minute you have an injury or something, it just sort of clumps up. And that's when, you know, when I massage on you in certain points, you're like, wow, that's painful. It's because you just got a cluster of fascia there that we need to open up to allow it to glide better. And you almost just kind of freeze up and you feel sort of very light in the body.
So when you release this fascia, so I know I've been to quite a few times to release it, and oh my God, I feel absolutely amazing. Like literally you do it and I feel amazing immediately, but even more so the next morning I wake up and I'm like just more softer and just limber and just loose. But then it ends up like, you know, not immediately, but maybe you know, after with time, it gets tight again. Is there no like permanent solution to like me leaving, like it just staying like the way it is after I
stay open? Yes, I mean, well, there is. It's a bit of work. Fascia is very emotional. Okay, so it reacts to stress very easily, and we go through stress day in, day out. You know, it could be just going on the road, sitting in traffic. It could be, you know, something at work. It can be anything. And that causes those fascia socks I was talking about to tighten up. So it also means you need to learn how to manage your stress as well. I can dive a little bit into, so we have the autonomic nervous system, we have the parasympathetic nervous system, and the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is our fight or fright response, and our parasympathetic nervous system is our calm, our rest and digest, where we relax. So on a day-to-day basis, we kind of move up into a sympathetic state, we move down into a parasympathetic state. We just keep moving up and down. But over the years, we found a lot of us sort of go up into the sympathetic state, but we drop not completely to a parasympathetic. We go back up to a sympathetic state. So we never drop down fully into that rest or digest state. And when we're stuck in that parasympathetic state, which we call chronic stress, your fascial tension is super high. The socks around your muscles, your organs are super high. And that's when that tightness, that tension comes in that we need to sort of try and release. They've also found that when we're in our sympathetic state, our stress state, we switch off our digestive system, our immune system switches off, but we have an increase in influx of blood to our muscles to get us ready for that run, to run away from danger or to fight. But over time, we get stuck in this state, and it stops our digestive system, our immune system from working efficiently. So a lot of people have digestive issues and they say it's linked to stress, and this is why. It's because we're not firing enough into that digestive system or your immune system, because your body is kind of stuck in that stress response. So this is where I teach my clients, you know, learn how to breathe, get yourself back into a parasympathetic state, doing your fascia points, movements, and you will feel lighter. But generally our bodies will go up and down, as you said, after a few days. But if you keep coming back to your breath, keep finding those fascia points that are stuck for you, you'll stay more open and less collapsed.
Closed.
Yeah.
And you know, at the end of the day, the only way to come back into that parasympathetic state is using your breath.
Exactly.
There's no other way.
So most people, you know, on a day-to-day basis, they have really had a long day at work. They come home, you know, they'll have a glass of wine or have a cup of tea, or, you know, some people might go for a smoke. Everyone has their little ceremonies of, you know, trying to feel like they're going back into that parasympathetic
But they're
state.
not.
But they're slightly going in, but they're not fully going in. And the easiest way is through our breath.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just don't know how to breathe.
Yep.
You know, the the diaphragm brings in 70% of the oxygen into our body. 90% of our vagus nerve is connected to our diaphragm, that we want to bring us back into that state of rest and digest and relaxation. So this is why it's so important for us to breathe.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And to take that breath all the way down into the belly, like, because most of the time we're only breathing in our chest.
Absolutely.
And that is not really the right way to breathe. We've forgotten how to breathe
Yes.
correctly. If you look at a baby, the baby's belly is always rising,
Yeah.
always falling, always rising, always falling. And that's the right way to breathe. But then over time, even the baby forgets how to breathe.
Yeah, and that's because of stress.
Yeah, stress.
It's not work stress, but it's just everyday stress. The little stress they have, our fascia just tightens up, so the diaphragm won't drop enough. So your lower lungs and the diaphragm don't fully dilate, so we get this dead space. They're saying if you've heard about the breath hold,
Yeah.
and how long can you hold your breath for, and they say if it's less than 30 seconds, you're only getting about 5 cubic liters of oxygen into your body.
Wow.
And your breath count per minute is really high. It's about 25 breaths per minute. Ideally, if you've read James Nestor's book,
Yes.
Breath.
Breathe. It's somewhere here. Oh, it's not. Well,
Yeah, it's right there.
Oh, it is.
Brilliant book. And he talks about us dropping our breath between 8 to 12 breaths per minute.
Yeah.
That's more than half of what people do.
Yeah.
And we've all forgotten how to do that. We used to do that, but now they say the normal average breath count is much higher, but it's not. It should be a lot lower.
And it's interesting because this is exactly what my mom tells us also, and this is what my mom teaches with her breathing exercises, is that when we go into that state of dream state, when we're going to sleep,
Yes.
we should be actually breathing 12 breaths per minute in our sleep state. And 12 is like excellent. If you can get to 12, that's like excellent. But majority of people are in the 16 or 18, which is still okay. Anything above 18 is like really, really, really detrimental for your health.
Yeah, because if you're having more breaths per minute, they say, for us to live better, we need to breathe less.
Exactly.
Less breaths per minute, less strain on the heart, less strain on the whole system, because you're getting enough oxygen into your body. They found that where the diaphragm sits, it sits just below your lungs. And when it inflates, when you breathe in, it pushes down on the abdominal sac. So your organs, your abdominal organs, like your liver, your kidney, they're supposed to move between 2 millimeters to a centimeter every time we take a breath. And when we take that breath, it's called an abdominal massage. The abdominal sac moves down and it pushes down on our pelvic floor. So what does our pelvic floor do? It tightens, it tones
Yes.
to push it back up. So every day we go through this abdominal massage of going up and down, but that's only if you're breathing using the diaphragm,
Yeah.
which most of us aren't. So if your organs are not getting this little movement of a millimeter to a centimeter, they're not functioning to their full efficiency. And that's why we have other digestive issues, liver issues, kidney issues, is because it's just not even getting that little movement. And another reason is also the sock around that organ, that fascial sock, is too tight.
It's too tight.
It's too tight. So if you're wearing a tight sock, you can't function as well as you should. So it's so important that we get that breath correctly using your diaphragm. And there's so many ways of getting that breath.
Yeah.
I teach a very simple way of just opening up the fascia around your ribs, opening up your diaphragm, getting them to understand where is the diaphragm, or how do you even take a belly breath. A lot of people just don't know how to do that. And they're like, I feel stuck, and that's their fascia. The ribs aren't able to fully expand because the fascia around the ribs are too tight. Between the intercostal muscles are not firing as much as they should.
And also, I think when you don't breathe correctly, you're not detoxing the organs either, because, the organs need the oxygen, the clean oxygen to go in for them to release the bad stuff out again. So it's also a really good detox way. And another thing that my mom really always says, and I find it so fascinating, is about you're not born with years to live, you're born with breaths. So the count of your life is not dependent on she lived till she was 88 years old or 90 years old, whatever. It's actually the count of how many breaths you've taken. So the
Amazing.
slower you breathe, the longer you live.
Yeah.
And I believe that.
I totally agree with you there. There's even like a lot of people say that we're currently just breathing to survive. You know, you're just kind of shallow breath, whatever breath it is, just to kind of carry on. But we've forgotten we need to breathe to thrive,
Exactly.
because that's when everything is working to its full potential.
And breathing is free.
Exactly. And you drop into that parasympathetic state before having a glass of wine, before having a smoke or whatever it is,
Yeah.
that we forget that, you know, that's in our going into our rest and digest state.
It's so
of
simple as
recovery.
that.
So simple.
Do other animals have fascias also?
Well, closest thing would be mammals.
Yeah.
Yes, mammals do have fascia. Again, they have fascia socks all around them. Fascia is interconnected. In humans, we have, there's a man called Tom Myers. He invented the anatomy trains. A brilliant man, discovered fascia. And he's discovered we have 5 main fascial lines, which I work on with all my clients.
Yeah.
Slightly different for animals, but if you understand where their anatomy is, you can do fascia work on animals. There are actually some people I've worked with in the past on certain courses for fascia. They work with horses.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so they, you know, wake up the fascia around the horse. There was actually an incident my teacher was talking about at that time, that he was actually treating a woman who'd fallen off the horse and she'd hurt her ankle, and he was working on her fascia, but he happened to be there when she was riding the horse, and noticed that even the horse's dynamics weren't in sync with hers, and he literally placed his hand just on the back left leg of the horse, just released a bit of fascia on the horse while she was on him. And then they rode again, and they almost had this rhythm again, because he's just like even the horse's fascia was stuck from the fall.
Because
it
even
wasn't just
Yeah.
the human that was injured, it was also the horse.
How
We forget
interesting.
that. Yeah.
I would have never thought of that, like that animals have fascia also, and they can also be healed by, releasing the fascia.
Yeah, even if you just give your dogs a rub just around their ribs, you're opening up their diaphragm, but
Yeah.
they breathe quite nicely, but they love it.
Yeah.
And they go drop down back into a parasympathetic state by you doing that.
Wow. And what about kids?
Kids, yes. So I work with a lot of kids, more older than younger. My girls are 3 and 6.
Yeah.
And I've been doing fascia work with them since they were born, but they can tolerate my pain now. As you know, some of the points are quite uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I've recently started working a lot with other children, because now it kind of helps them, especially athletes, helps them with their performance, their flexibility. You'll notice that when kids are quite young, they're very mobile.
Yeah.
They can sit in a deep squat, do a puzzle, they can do all sorts. But the older they get, you start noticing, they can't bend down or sit for long, or they're more sedentary, they're on their screens. So fascia starts to tighten up, stress kicks in as well. So I work a lot with them, just teaching them again how to breathe, because we all forget that. As young children, they breathe correctly, and then over time, we start getting lazy. So just teaching them how to breathe, how to work on fascia. And now I'm working a lot on the jaw.
The jaw, right? And also with the kids.
With the kids, because there's a lot more research now going on. And if you've read James's book, he talks about how mouth breathing and nose breathing can affect, the facial structure.
Yeah.
Of the body, and how the teeth sit, how the tongue sits. So I've now started working on children's palates, working on the TMJ, teaching them how to do a bit more nose breathing over mouth breathing. And there's more research going into mewing, if you know what mewing is.
Nope.
It's where you put the tip of your tongue just slightly behind your front teeth, and then you swallow really slowly. And what will happen is the back third of your tongue will move up. So if you try it, and while you're in that position, try and take a nice deep breath. And you should feel that you might feel a bit more air around your ears because you've opened up the airway. But over time, our tongues get lazy and they sit quite low because we don't actually have a bone here. So the tongue comes down and it cuts a bit of our airway. So that's when we get more sleep apnea issues, breathing issues, snoring, all sorts of things when the tongue has become lazy. So now I'm learning more on tongue exercises and teaching it to kids. And also them doing these exercises over months also helps change their facial structure. There's less, they found more results that there's less crowding of the teeth because the palates have opened, trying to reduce, medical intervention for kids as well.
And do you feel like kids are more open to doing these things, or
Some
is it
of
a bit
them,
more
I've had a
challenging?
few more, I think more the older kids are more understanding. The younger kids still, it's like trying to get a child to do their homework, because they have to do these exercises. And it's, it's about a 10-minute program that you have to do daily, which can be quite a lot for a child. But even if the little that they do, we're actually causing some change.
So like now, my sons now, they're 11. And I know that one of them, he's terrible. He's a mouth breather. And, when you're saying his teeth, you can see he's literally like they're coming out.
They're protruding.
They're very straight, but they're coming out. And the other one, he's not a mouth breather, but his teeth are very crowded because his jaw is very small. And I'm just thinking it's better for them to do something like this now.
Absolutely.
Because now when they're 16 or 18, then the jaw's kind of like now set in its way, and probably more difficult for things to shift and change.
Yes and no. I mean, I work with adults and with jaw issues like TMJ. So if you think about, as I said, going into that stress response from the being stuck in that sympathetic state, the body clenches or tightens the jaw to find stability. So we get stuck in this slight clench or slight hold in the fascia in your face. And that, that sock tightens, then people get migraines, headaches,
The teeth grinding.
and that's all a reflex or all a result of stress.
Probably even earaches, no?
Yeah, earaches, anything with TMJ, blocked sinuses, snoring, all sorts of things you get with tight fascia and stress in the face. So I've started now teaching clients how to release the fascial structures within the mouth and externally to help reduce that tension. And if you remember, the fascia is connected head to toe. So anything you do at the top has a ripple effect at the bottom. They say the jaw is very much linked to the calf. So if you've got a really tight jaw, you may have a tight calf, or vice versa. People say, I keep getting cramps in my feet or cramps in my calf. But it may not be that the calf issue is higher up that fascial line that needs to be released. And most of the time, it's the jaw.
This podcast was created to inspire and connect with people. If you are liking the content of this podcast, hit the subscribe button, like, follow, and share this platform. Lots of love.
And I feel like when I'm stressed, or when I have a lot of stress, or I'm a bit overwhelmed, always it's my right side, my right shoulder, my right neck, all of this gets tight. Do you see that? Do you see a trend in people have a specific part of their body that tightens up?
So remember I spoke about those fascial lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Anatomy Trains has these 5 main fascial lines, and you're kind of really depicting one. So it's definitely your right shoulder, your right neck, but it's something coming also into your hip. So we've got this spiral line or functional line that gets affected. So there are certain trends I see, and I know exactly where I would need to release, but unfortunately normal physiotherapy practices just focus on the site of pain.
Yeah.
But we need to look further down the actual fascial line and open that up to reduce the pull that's happening
in the neck and the shoulder.
In the neck and the shoulder.
But let's say maybe it could be a trauma thing. Maybe it's a trauma that's stuck in the body or is stuck in the fascia in that point.
Yes. So you can have fascia, as I said, is very emotional.
Yeah.
And when we go through something traumatic, even a car accident, you got hit from the front or you got hit from the side. So you have this defense that you'll always do this. So even though the car accident is, happened, you've recovered, you had a bit of treatment done, but over the years, let's say you're playing paddle and someone comes really quickly to your right, your defense system will kick in and your body will just tighten because it's kind of reliving that memory of that car accident you had, but you're still holding that fascia. I mean, that tightness or that memory in your fascia. So I help my clients go through, obviously opening up their zone 1, understanding that they're safe, getting into their breath, opening the fascia further down so that the body doesn't try and fall into that defense. So we have a few areas that we store emotions. One of them is the chest. And I'm sure you felt that when I've worked on your chest, like even just using my fingertips, you find that extremely painful. Or it's a burning sensation. And that's where emotion is held. We have one sort of between our shoulder blades, in our pelvis area. So I work a lot of with women postnatal, just, the trauma of actually giving birth, be it vaginal or C-section. It could be anything. And you store the emotion in that area and we find it. And sometimes they're not ready to let it go. And it's just too painful. And we focus on our breath and trying to get them to feel that their body is kind of calming down, getting them into the breath. So the actual tension in those socks just starts to lighten up. Yeah, because fascia is supposed to feel, it's honey-like. It's supposed to be very fluid, very light. That's what the body is supposed to feel. The majority of people always have this heaviness or tightness or restriction in their fascia. And
I mean, you almost see it even in their posture, right? Sometimes,
Absolutely.
Somebody's rounded their back or hunched more and stuff. So,
and that's one of the defense mechanisms, right? We go into this primitive state, what we call the fetal position, where we're trying to open up, like you tighten up here because your shoulder's round. So you get a fascial cluster here. You get a fascial cluster just below the breast crease. You get tightness in the neck. And it's all because you get stuck in this kind of fetal position or defense posture and you don't know how to break yourself
and open
free.
up.
Yeah. So a lot of people complain about neck tightness, or I always have these knots in my shoulders, in my rhomboids. And it's because the fascial tension is stuck elsewhere. We need to release that to open up your shoulders.
Okay, so what are some things that people can do daily to help improve their fascial health? I know you stepped into the mobility and the breathing, but is there anything else that they can do on a daily basis to just be a bit more aware of their fascia?
So fascia, as I said, is very emotional. So trying to figure out how to manage your stress, what works for you, find joy in something that you do. It could be painting, it could be meditating, it could be coloring, anything that you can find peace in, find joy in, and help your body drop into that parasympathetic state. The minute you do that, that fascial tension is already reduced. Hydrate yourself, whenever you can, maybe even just once a week, have an Epsom salt bath. If you can't get into a bath, soak your feet in the water and try that. There's so many fascia techniques out there. Find the one that works for you. Ideally, if there's a lot of distortion or bruising after having fascia work done, that's not going to help heal the fascia. You're actually damaging the fascia more. I know some of the points that I do are quite painful.
I don't get any bruising.
But because it's all superficial, we're literally trying to open up or detangle those fibers of fascia that are stuck. But we're not going too deeper into the tissue layers to damage a bit of the muscle. We're being very superficial on that fascia. So it's learning different fascial techniques that work for you, or come see me and I teach you your own fascia sequence that works for you, or what fascial line of yours is stuck, and work on that.
And what I like is that about what you do is that you give people this tool. You give them this take home and tell them, okay, now, like you've given me a list of things that I do usually before when I remember, or that I do to release my fascia, to release and to open up these places in my body. And it helps. It really, really helps me, because it's just, again, it's creating that self-awareness of the body, self-awareness of what usually would happen to me. It doesn't happen to me necessarily now anymore,
Yeah.
luckily. And that's because you've taught me these things. And that's what I like, is it's not like, the person doesn't have to come and see you every week when their fascia tightens. You literally need to maybe see them 2 or 3 sessions. And then after that, you give them this tool, and, then they go on their own. And then maybe once they forget, like I do, then they're like, Anjali,
So
please.
it's making sure like everyone has that mind-body connection, understanding where you feel your tightness is. You'll become more in tune to it.
Yeah.
Even though you've got this kind of lingering pain in the shoulder, if you start connecting more with your body, you'll say, oh, I can actually feel that fascial line. There's something going on in my opposite hip, or is it in my foot? And you're more in tune with yourself, and you'll know what to do. And that's what I teach then, is trying to understand where you lie as a person. It's not every
So it's a very personal approach, right?
It's a personal approach.
Yeah.
There are some places, because I work within the zones using the Be Activated framework. So I do focus on zone 1. If your zone 1 is firing correctly, you've got that breath work, you've got activation, it's going to be a ripple effect through the body. And then you'll feel it. And then you'll be like, oh, yes, let me first start with my breath, or just release my zone 1 and see what happens to that pain in my shoulder. Is it better, or do I need to come back? Doing your mobility exercises. I love giving mobility exercises.
Yeah.
And then you kind of take ownership of your body.
Yeah.
It's not put on me that, oh, she'll fix it when it's time. But it's you understanding, and you'll actually feel the difference in performance.
Yeah.
So once you've done it and you go and do one of your workouts, you'll feel amazing that, oh, I can push myself even more, because all those socks have just opened up.
Yeah.
And you've got fluidity in the body, and you can move better.
Tell me a story of somebody who had like a huge transformation from coming to see you. Like maybe they had something, if you can share something like that.
So I'll give you, she's a paddle player, a Pilates teacher, and she had this niggling pain in her hip. And for years she'd had so much work done on her, and we just couldn't find out. She just couldn't get rid of that last niggle. And then I asked her, how's your breath? And she's like, oh, I breathe fine. I do Pilates. So they have their way of breathing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was just like, well, okay, show me how you breathe. And then she did it, and it was great. She got good diaphragm movement. But I was just like, look, I don't know if you are able to connect with yourself, but this side of your rib, or the rib angle, is just not opening as well as it should. So the psoas muscle and the diaphragm have a fascial connection. So these hip issues, the psoas is not able to move as well. But is it because of the diaphragm? It wasn't actually the hip or the structure in the hip. So we actually had to release a bit more of underneath her rib. And then she's like, oh my God, I can sit like this. I can move my hip. And I haven't been able to move my hip, because everyone looks into releasing the hip, giving you hip opening exercises. And I said, just go slightly higher up the chain and see, is it something else higher up? Or it could be lower down. But I knew it was for her, it was higher up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Imagine something so simple as that, right?
Yeah.
I love that.
There's this saying that I love by Leonardo da Vinci, and he says, learn how to see and realize that everything is connected to everything else.
And that goes for your fascia.
It goes for my fascia. He was one of the first discoverers of fascia.
Wow.
Yeah. And he drew the first images, one of the first images of fascia.
Well, one thing that a lot of people don't know about you, that I know about you, that I love, is that you're so passionate about what you do.
Thank you.
Whenever you talk about fascia, whenever you're working on your patients, you're literally like in your zone, and your face is always lit up. And it's so amazing to see that, because it's very rare to find somebody who really loves doing what they do, and especially what you do, which is so special. And giving back to people is absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
I really like that. How can somebody now reach out to you?
You can share my contacts with them.
Okay.
I'm not very good with social media.
I know.
I need to improve on that. But yes, anyone can contact me. I'm based at Performance Medicine in Gigiri.
Yeah.
So they can even contact the clinic, and they'll get us in touch. we can have a little quick chat on the phone to see, what your issues are, and then book an appointment and we take it from there. You don't always have to have an injury. It's sometimes even just understanding what your fascia is and getting connected within yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You don't necessarily have to have an injury to come and see you. Is there something we haven't spoken about today that you think that is really, really important?
Well, we've gone through breath work, which I wanted to, and the jaw. And yeah, I think we're pretty much covered everything I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to ask me?
Maybe you could share a bit of your experience, maybe the first session we had.
Okay.
On it.
Yeah. I think the first time I came to you, I didn't know what I was going to expect.
Yes.
And I was like, wowza, this woman is strong. What is she doing? Like, but you were literally hardly pressing, but it was still really painful because of all the tightness that I had. And I came to see you like after I'd had the shoulder injury and I'd fallen off my bike, but it wasn't right after. It was like a while after.
Yes.
I had done physio, I'd done everything. I thought I had healed, but I hadn't healed from it. And then when I came to see you and you helped me understand my body better, you helped me open up better, and it was super effective. Like, it was immediately effective. And then recently I've been coming to see you again because that same nagging pain down the shoulder, down my scapula, and down my neck is still there. And it's interesting because I've been trying to do pull-ups for the longest time.
Yes, I know.
And it's like, I just don't get it because it's actually nothing to do with the strength that I'm building, because I'm building enough strength. It's to do with that fear. It's like the trauma is still stuck, and maybe it's still deeper within my body and it's still stuck there, the trauma of just falling off
we
my
did
back.
find something, I think, in your hip or just around your psoas that, that activation or the firing wasn't going through all the way up the chain.
Yeah.
And that's why you weren't just able to get it. And we just needed you to do a bit more activation of your lats
Exactly.
to try and...
And now I'm able to, like, I feel like after seeing you, the 2 sessions that I had with you, since then, I feel like, okay, I'm not completely still doing a pull-up, but the growth has been much more.
Yeah.
Right? I'm getting there.
And that's a great thing, I think, about my work is that you don't need to come so often. With like physiotherapy, we say, you come 6 to 10 times sometimes to sort out an injury.
Yeah.
But if we kind of find the actual root cause, you don't need that much. And if you do your bit, you'll feel amazing. You won't feel amazing while I do it, and even maybe the day after, because your whole body feels like, oh my God, I've been hit by a bus.
Yeah.
But it's just because all your fascia is realigning itself. Your body's trying to drop you and pull you back down into a parasympathetic state, just so that you're rebooting.
Yeah, exactly. Rebooting and rewiring, right?
Yeah, so you can have better performance.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for today. I think this was absolutely amazing.
Oh,
and I'm
thank
so
you.
glad that we finally
Thank you so
did
much
it.
for having me. I'm so grateful. We finally got to have this conversation.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I'll see you on Thursday for TRX.
Yes, definitely.
Thanks.
Thank you.